Hi friends, it's Sanam with Exit Realty BlackRock, and today we have Tammy Heeber with Appraisal Source LLC, and she's here to talk about what you guys can do to make the whole process just a little bit smoother. So Tammy, we actually had a challenge not too long ago. One of our agents was representing a buyer, and the appraisal was scheduled with the listing agent, as it typically is, and what happened was the appraisal showed up at the property and the home was nowhere near being ready for the appraisal. Faucets were not hooked up. There was a lot of work that was being done on the property. The appliances were not in place, and I know you mentioned appliances are only necessary if they're in the contract. So they were in the contract, but they were not in the property. And there were a variety of things that just were not put into place, and so the appraiser had to go back out there for a second time, and unfortunately a third time. And there's a lot of cost and lost valuable time associated with mistakes like that. So Tammy's here to kind of shed a little bit of light on us as professional realtors so we can help make that whole process a lot smoother, both for our buyer and the seller, and just to kind of get the deal to the closing table. So Tammy, what advice do you have for us realtors?
Just make sure the house is livable. Anything that you need in order to make it work. Faucets have to run properly. The water has to be clean. Toilets have to flush. Anything that affects safety, all of those things. There's a checklist that I have both for conventional loans and for FHA loans that I'm happy to share with any agent. Just need to contact me and I'll give you a link to download it.
Wonderful.
And so you can see exactly what it is the appraiser would be looking for. And it's a great tool to use so that you're prepared and you can take care of anything before the appraiser gets there and it becomes an issue.
Yeah. So I know that you said sometimes you show up to homes and the heat won't kick on. How do you handle that?
Yeah, well, quite often the agent doesn't know how to turn the heat on, so we have to call the homeowner. Sometimes it's an electronic thermostat, and they're different. So it's not like the old kind where you could just kind of dial it up and get the heat to kick on.
Sure.
So yeah, especially for an FHA, when weather permits, certainly we can't test the heat, when it's 90 degrees out.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, that is a requirement of FHA that the heat be tested and it functions.
I actually want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about additions, where like a sunroom is finished and there's heat, but it may not be considered part of the home. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Sure. Especially for FHA, it has to be heated without human intervention. Something like a pellet stove. That's not considered to be a central heating source.
Interesting.
People would need to load more pellets in order for it to continue to run, same as a fireplace.
Interesting.
So even a portable heater would not be considered the main heating source. So that really would not be considered a part of the living area because of it.
Interesting. How important are permits? If permits have not been pulled, what does that do to the whole appraisal?
It would depend on what type of improvement. If you're talking about a kitchen remodel where, just cabinets are swapped out or countertops or that kind of thing, a permit's not required. If plumbing, electrical, if there were structural changes, those all require permits.
And so if one hasn't been done, well, you have to go back in after permits are pulled?
Yeah. Again, we would make the report subject to, so it would be subject to the permits being in place and the proper inspections, whatever may be required, were completed.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily have to go back. Those would just have to be furnished.
As long as they were provided to the appraiser. Yep.
Wonderful. So agents, I hope you found this information useful. Hopefully this will prevent a lot of delays for our buyers and our sellers, because it creates such a domino effect. For our buyers, they can lose rate locks. For our sellers, if they're purchasing another property, they get frustrated with their agent. So if we all just cross our T's, dot our I's, and do what needs to be done, we can all have a much smoother transaction. Right. So, Tammy, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye, guys.